In 48 BCE, the fate of Rome hung in the balance. Two of its greatest generals, Julius Caesar and Pompey the Great, stood on opposite sides of the battlefield at Pharsalus. One commanded the might of the Senate-backed legions, the other had the loyalty of hardened veterans who had conquered Gaul. But in this war for supremacy, only one could emerge victorious. What led to this fateful showdown, and how did Caesar overcome impossible odds to defeat Pompey? Stay with us as we uncover the battle that reshaped Roman history forever, the road to war. The rivalry between Julius Caesar and Pompey wasn't always hostile. Once they were allies in the First Triumvirate, a political alliance formed in 60 BCE alongside the immensely wealthy Marcus Licinius Crassus. This unofficial pact allowed the three men to control Rome's political system, bypassing the Senate's authority. Each of them had specific interests. Caesar sought military glory, Pompey wanted land for his veterans, and Crassus aimed for greater financial power. But alliances in Rome were fragile. Over time, tensions grew. Caesar's military campaigns in Gaul, 58 to 50 BCE, made him immensely powerful, earning the undying loyalty of his legions. His conquest of modern-day France and Belgium, along with his daring expeditions into Britain and Germany, made him the most celebrated general of his time. However, these victories also alarmed the Roman Senate, which feared that Caesar was becoming too powerful. Meanwhile, Pompey, once Rome's greatest general, had lost much of his influence. After Crassus was killed in 53 BCE at the disastrous Battle of Carrhae against the Parthians, the delicate balance of power between the triumvirate collapsed. Pompey, now allied with the Senate, positioned himself as Rome's defender of tradition, opposing Caesar's rising influence. In 50 BCE, the Senate, influenced by Pompey and the Optimates, Rome's conservative faction, ordered Caesar to disband his legions and return to Rome as a private citizen. They claimed his term as governor had ended, and if he refused, he would be declared an enemy of the state. However, Caesar knew that stepping into Rome alone would mean certain prosecution, exile, or even death at the hands of his enemies. He had only one option: fight for power. On January 10th, 49 BCE, Caesar made his fateful decision. He led his 13th legion across the Rubicon River, the legal boundary of his province. By crossing it, he declared war against the Senate, reportedly saying, "Alia iacta est," the die is cast. Pompey and the Senate, caught off guard by Caesar's rapid movements, fled Rome and regrouped in Greece, where they could build an army with the support of Rome's eastern provinces. Over the next year, Caesar swept through Italy, Spain, and Gaul, securing his power while chasing Pompey across the Mediterranean. The decisive confrontation was drawing near. In August 48 BCE, the two greatest commanders of their age finally met at Pharsalus. The Battle of Pharsalus, August 9th, 48 BCE. By the summer of 48 BCE, the Roman world was divided. Pompey, with the full support of the Senate and the Roman aristocracy, had assembled a massive force in Greece. His army was composed of over 50,000 infantry, 7,000 cavalry, and a well-supplied command structure. In contrast, Caesar had fewer than 22,000 troops and just 1,000 cavalry, and his forces were exhausted after months of marching and skirmishing. Yet, what Caesar lacked in numbers, he made up for with veteran experience and strategic brilliance. Pompey's battle plan. Pompey was confident. His strategy was simple. 1. Use his numerical superiority to hold a strong defensive position. 2. Allow Caesar's forces to attack first, tiring them out before launching a counterstrike. 3. Deploy his superior cavalry on his left flank, overwhelming Caesar's much smaller cavalry force. Then encircle and crush Caesar's army. Pompey believed that attrition would wear Caesar down, and he had the supplies to hold his position indefinitely. However, this defensive mindset played into Caesar's hands, Caesar's tactical masterstroke. Caesar understood that he was outnumbered, but he also knew Pompey's strengths and weaknesses. Instead of a traditional charge, Caesar devised a brilliant counter-strategy. 1. He placed his best legionary cohorts in reserve, waiting for the right moment to counter the expected cavalry attack. 2. Knowing that Pompey's cavalry would try to outflank him, Caesar ordered his troops to fight defensively, keeping their formation tight. 3. He trained a special unit of infantry to attack Pompey's cavalry with javelins and short-range stabbing weapons, disrupting their charge. As expected, Pompey's cavalry launched their flanking attack, attempting to push through Caesar's right flank. However, instead of retreating, Caesar's hidden infantry suddenly surged forward, targeting the riders and forcing Pompey's cavalry into disarray. Within moments, Pompey's left flank crumbled. Turning the tide, with Pompey's cavalry in full retreat, Caesar immediately ordered his front-line infantry to advance. His hardened veterans pushed against Pompey's main army, forcing them into close-quarters combat, where Caesar's troops had the advantage. At the same time, Caesar's reserve legions now swung around and attacked Pompey's exposed flank, completely shattering the Senate forces. Pompey's retreat. Realizing that the battle was lost, Pompey fled the battlefield in panic, abandoning his men to their fate. His army, seeing their commander retreat, collapsed into chaos, with thousands surrendering. Caesar's forces pursued the remnants of Pompey's army, cutting them down or capturing them. By the end of the day, Caesar had achieved an astonishing victory despite being heavily outnumbered. Pompey's once great army was destroyed. The aftermath, a murder in Egypt. Pompey had suffered a crushing defeat at Pharsalus, and with his army in ruins, he had only one option: escape and regroup. Fleeing with a small retinue, he set sail for Egypt, a former client state of Rome, where he expected to find refuge and reinforcements. But what he didn't know was that Egypt's political landscape was in turmoil, and his arrival would seal his fate. Pompey's arrival in Egypt. By the time Pompey arrived near Pelusium on the Egyptian coast, the ruling pharaoh, Ptolemy XIII, was facing his own crisis. He and his sister, Cleopatra VII, were embroiled in a bitter struggle for control of Egypt. Ptolemy's advisors, fearing Caesar's wrath, saw an opportunity. They could eliminate Pompey and win Caesar's favor. As Pompey's ship approached the shore on September 28, 48 BCE, a small Egyptian boat rowed toward him. Among the men aboard were Achillas, a high-ranking Egyptian general, and Lucius Septimius, a former Roman officer who had once served under Pompey. Trusting them, Pompey stepped onto the smaller vessel, likely believing he was about to be escorted to safety. The assassination. The moment Pompey set foot on Egyptian soil, the betrayal began. As he stood on the shore, Septimius suddenly drew his sword and stabbed Pompey in the back. The others joined in, quickly cutting him down. His lifeless body was left on the beach while his head was severed and taken as a trophy. His wife, Cornelia, who had watched from their ship offshore, could do nothing but flee in horror. The assassins presented Pompey's severed head to Ptolemy XIII, believing it would please Caesar. However, when Caesar arrived in Alexandria days later, he reacted with shock and disgust. Instead of rewarding the Egyptians, he wept at the sight of his former ally's head. He even punished Pompey's murderers, using the assassination as a pretext to intervene in Egypt's political struggle. Caesar's involvement in Egypt. Pompey's death ended Rome's civil war, but for Caesar, Egypt became his next challenge. He soon found himself entangled in the power struggle between Ptolemy XIII and Cleopatra VII. Siding with Cleopatra, Caesar played a key role in securing her control over Egypt, leading to their famous alliance and love affair. With Pompey gone, there was no one left to challenge Caesar's supremacy. However, his victory would set him on a path toward dictatorship and ultimately assassination. The beginning of Caesar's downfall. With Pompey dead, Caesar had no equal. He was now the undisputed master of Rome, but victory brought new challenges. His next steps would define the future of the Republic and seal his own fate. As he stood in Egypt, holding the head of his once great rival, Caesar did not celebrate. He understood that his battle for power was far from over. The Senate, the remaining Pompeian loyalists, and Rome's old aristocracy still viewed him as a threat. His next move would determine whether he could rule as a true statesman or if he had merely postponed his own destruction. In the coming years, Caesar would settle old rivalries, defeating Pompey's remaining allies in Africa and Spain, claim ultimate power, becoming dictator for life in 44 BCE. Reform Rome, introducing policies that reshaped governance, debt laws, and citizenship. Ignite fear among the Senate, who saw his ambition as a threat to the Republic itself. But as Caesar amassed power, his enemies plotted in the shadows. His former allies, including Brutus and Cassius, whispered of conspiracy and betrayal. The Ides of March loomed on the horizon. Had Caesar won the war only to lose the peace? Could he outmaneuver the very men who had once fought alongside him? Or was his fate already sealed by the daggers of Rome's elite? One thing was certain: the story of Julius Caesar was far from over. Stay with us as we uncover the final chapters of Rome's most legendary ruler, his rise to supreme power, and the assassination that shocked the world. Enjoying the journey through history? Make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community of history enthusiasts. Don't forget to leave a comment below. Tell us what you think, share your favorite historical insights, or suggest a topic you'd love to see us explore. And if you know someone who would love diving into the past, share this video with them. Let's uncover history together.